Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Kazakowski, and before we begin in earnest, I'd just like to do a little introduction about myself, TracerPlus, and what Joe is going to show all of you today. So, for those of you that have been keeping up with our social media releases, you might recognize me from some of our new videos. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a recent college graduate, and I began working here at PTS a couple of months ago. Since then, I've spent my time here, as many of you have, or will be, and have been learning how to use TracerPlus. Now, I won't say that I was completely inexperienced with technology like this because my education has afforded me some knowledge, but I was largely in the dark when I started here. One of the points that everyone at PTS wanted to hit on was my inexperience with the systems and what the process was for going from having no experience to getting up and running with a program in TracerPlus. They asked me to create a program in TracerPlus when I applied, just a simple little barcode tracker. And with help not unlike you'll be receiving from Joe, I managed to put it together in a working first program in a little under a day. Now, that doesn't mean that it was pretty or refined right away, but it did work. And over time, with more help, it actually developed into a sample app that you can see in TracerPlus right now. This was due largely in part to the sheer amount of information that PTS has online, from videos to knowledge-based articles. Think of using TracerPlus like climbing a mountain. We here at PTS are like your guides, and we want you to get to the top. And to do that, we can guide you up personally in conjunction with the wealth of helpful information present online. Or if you're feeling bold, you can try to find your own path. But the fact that you're here today shows us that for one reason or another, you need help and you want TracerPlus to be explained. That's perfectly all right, and we encourage asking us for help if you need it. We want you to succeed. Keep in mind, however, that there is a veritable treasure trove of information on our website in the form of articles and videos that you can access at any time. Whether you're an end user, a programmer, or anywhere in between, we want TracerPlus to be accessible and easy for you to use. That's the point of all the content we put up and these webinars and the open offices that we run. TracerPlus is vastly easier to use than many of the other barcoding apps out there, but everyone needs help sometimes. So, in that vein, today Joe's going to go over how to get started with barcoding in TracerPlus and show you why TracerPlus is the right choice for your needs. Thank you all for joining us today, and without further ado, here's Joe.
Thank you, Tyler. Hello, everyone. I am Joe Kraebel. I am a mobile solutions architect here at PTS. And before we get started, I do want to mention that if you are interested in fixed RFID, we recommend you check out our Clearstream RFID webinar tomorrow at noon Eastern. You can register at clearstreamrfid.com. And for those of you who are not aware of Clearstream, it is the only user-configurable fixed RFID software that can be set up in minutes to track pretty much anything, anytime, anywhere. All right, so why should you use TracerPlus? So TracerPlus gives you custom mobile apps with no programming. It's very affordable, fully customizable, and it's easy to integrate. So why mobile? So a lot of people are currently using paper forms or antiquated methods for collecting data and then having to manually entering that data to a backend database or an Excel sheet, which is prone to a lot of errors. So that's where TracerPlus comes in, where it gives you this, basically these mobile forms on your device with lots of error checking, and it seamlessly is able to sync that data back to your backend databases or Excel sheets. We also have an easy-to-use form design tool, so you can build enterprise-class-looking forms with ease. We also offer powerful and flexible features, from something very simple to the barcoding feature that we're going to be discussing today, to something more complex, such as a conditional form logic, where you do things based on certain results. Also with TracerPlus, you can deploy to multiple platforms. So you can take your one application and deploy it to an Android device, a Windows mobile device, and also iOS, iPhones, and iPads. So with TracerPlus, you can design mobile apps for a wide variety of uses. Some of these you'll actually see today, but you can do things for asset tracking, inventory control, mobile inspections, field service for things out in the fields, You can use it in retail operations, event management, and many more. So, how do you get started designing mobile apps using TracerPlus? So as Tyler was mentioning, he used a lot of these resources to help him build the app that he created, which we'll even show today, just to see how well he did. So the first thing you can get started with is our Online Solution Center. So that's an online repository of pre-built applications that are free to use, free to download. You can actually use them as is or make changes as needed to fit your specific needs. So we're probably up to a little over 100 apps now. We also offer training videos and webinars such as these, where you can actually get started. Usually we have videos on getting started with a specific application or more feature-focused videos or webinars that are specific to an actual feature, such as lookup fields or calculated fields, or even using validation. So if you're looking for something specific, those are good videos to check out. Otherwise, if you're looking to get started, check out our Getting Started section of our training videos. There are also some support resources available to you to get help starting out. One of those is our knowledge base, which houses answers to common questions or issues. So you should be able to search and hopefully find answers there. We also have our user guides, which are also helpful, as well as our community support forum. So there you can actually chat with existing TracerPlus users and kind of get their feedback as to what they're doing or how they did something specific. We also offer training services. So you can actually get one-on-one training with one of our technical experts for the ins and outs of TracerPlus or anything specific that you want to learn. If you want to learn just how to use TracerPlus, or if you want to learn how to set up a specific feature, this training can be very useful. Lastly, if you're short on time, we can actually set up the application for you. That entails getting a spec over to us. We create a statement of work, and then we're able to then create a session setup, what we call, which is basically the creation of your application based on that statement of work, usually within a reasonable amount of time, anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, and you'll have a fully functioning application. I do want to mention, if you do have questions at any point throughout this webinar, please type them into the question panel and we will address those at the conclusion of the demonstration. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right into the demo that I'm going to show today. All right, so I do want to mention before we get started here that everything that I'm going to show today, ranging from the software down to the mobile applications, are all available for free trial or free download by going to TracerPlus.com and clicking the Take a Trial. So here you'll be able to download some of the tools that I'm actually using today. So the first thing I want to start with is our mobile solutions. So this was the Mobile Solution Center I was referring to in one of the earlier slides. So this is that online repository of apps. And you'll see that we break this down into 8 major categories. So if you're looking to do things for asset tracking, inventory management, inspections, event tracking, field service, route accounting, or retail, you'll see those 7 major categories. And then anything that doesn't fit within those, we have placed in the miscellaneous category. So if we happen to jump into the asset tracking category, we'll see the first application that comes up is the chemical tracker, which is actually the application Tyler created. We'll also see some asset checkouts, tool crib inventory. So if you're looking for something specific, this is a good place to get started, as it may do exactly what you need, or it may be close to what you're actually looking to do. And you'll see that I'm going to take one of these applications and import it into our desktop tool. And then we can see how easy it is to deploy to devices as well as make changes. So if I were to click on one of these applications, we'll give you a brief description of what it does, a screenshot of what it looks like, and then some details about what the project is designed for. So these very applications are also available directly within our TracerPlus desktop tool. So this is the tool. It's free to download. You only license the devices that you use it on. So this is what you're going to use to actually create your mobile applications. So it's sort of your design tool. So you'll see that we also have a sample section here, which is a link to that same solution center. And if I click on that asset tracking category and then chemical tracker, we'll see that same description as well as that screenshot. So if I hit next and then import, we'll be able to get this imported to the desktop software. So we'll see that we have 4 different sessions here. So a session we consider a form with a data table behind it. And TracerPlus, a single project will support up to 32 different sessions. So you can think of it as doing multiple applications with a single device. So if you wanted to do something other than chemical tracking, you could also add things such as IT asset tracking, maybe inventory, inspections. You could all add this within the same project. So if we look at the session, we'll see chemical received, and then we'll see a list of fields that are used within this session. So these are the fields of data that you'll be collecting for this particular session and what would be sent back to your database. Then we could take a look at the form designer. So this is what the form will look like on the device once deployed. So everything here is drag and drop. So you'll see I can move around the field by just clicking the mouse, or you can even get more precise by entering or editing some of these control properties on the right-hand side. We also give you a host of alignment tools to make your forms look neater and cleaner. And one thing we're going to talk about in a little bit is the actual data capture options, which is specific for barcode features. So this is where you can enable and disable barcode scanning as well as NFC and RFID scanning. And we also support printing and messaging for those that are interested in doing that. So if we just jump back to the field settings, you'll see that we give you a different variety of field types here, ranging from text, drop-down, checkboxes. You can also capture signatures and images, radio buttons. You can also do calculations, ranging from string concatenations to mathematical calculations to averages, as well as GPS coordinates. Another feature we're going to be talking about today is the after scan. So that's basically some actions that can be done on what we call an after scan event. So in the instance of scanning a barcode, what should happen after that barcode is scanned? So some of those settings can be controlled here. Another one we'll discuss is validation, and specifically the barcode type validation. So depending on your application, you may want to use barcode type validation to make sure that your users are scanning the correct barcodes or not double scanning something they shouldn't be. And we also support lookup features, which enables you to look up item data based on a barcode scanned. So rather than having to keep keying in information, you could actually look up, chemical name and such based on a chemical ID that is scanned. So that speeds the data collection process tremendously. All right, so what I can do now is actually deploy this to one of my connected devices just so we can see what it looks like. So I'm using a tool called Visor. It's a free add-in into the Google Chrome browser. where I can actually view my Android device remotely. So if I just open TracerPlus, we'll see that I have a different session loaded here, but I'm going to actually deploy this. So there are a few different ways you can actually deploy. You'll notice that based on the platform that you're deploying to, you can actually select it here, whether it's Windows Mobile, Android, or iOS. If you select Windows Mobile, that requires the device to be connected to the PC via USB. If you select Android, there are a few different ways you can actually deploy. The most common is the MTP method, which is USB. You can also use the deploy server, which is basically a QR code that gets generated, and then you can scan that with the device and have this project deployed remotely, so that you don't actually have to physically connect it to the PC. For some older devices, there was a map drive option, which I think is pretty much getting phased out. Or you can also deploy using the Android Debug Bridge, or ADB. I'm just going to go ahead and deploy this. And if I go back to my device, just click on a session to reload. So here's the session deployed to the device. You'll see that we actually used some different icons here. So these icons are customizable. You can use whatever you want. And you'll see that you can actually add those next to the session name here. So that can also make your application look more professional and enterprise class. So we have 3 sessions here, one for receiving chemicals, one for updating chemicals, and one for disposing of chemicals, as well as a sync session, which would actually enable you to sync chemical data to the device so that you could reference it based on ID, or also sync from the device once you have actually finished scanning your chemical. So if we look in chemical received, we'll see different fields here where we can enter the chemical number or asset number in this case. We can use drop-down fields to select locations. So let me go ahead and just scan something. So say 1001, say acetone. We can set whether it's active or not. Who is the person actually doing this scan? Whether it's hazardous or not. And then just a reminder to check description. So we want to put a description in here. Say this is a chemical. And then we could submit that. So that's going to save locally to the device, and then you can actually sync that data over to a database or a spreadsheet or even a text file using our TracerPlus Connect software. Let me just show you some of the other applications that we have here. So if we jump back to our samples, so if we look at inventory, we could look at something for inventory issue and receive. This is based on a Windows device. However, it can be deployed to both Android and iOS as well. So you'll see here we have 3 sessions, one for receiving product, one for issuing product, and then the product list is basically our inventory. If I were to deploy this to my connected Windows device this time, so I'm using a tool called My Mobiler for the Windows device, which allows me to remotely control the device from my PC. And My Mobiler is available for download on our downloads page. So here's our 3 sessions. So you'll see we didn't use icons for this, so this is what a generic icon would look like. But if we look at our product list, we can actually add product here, or we can issue and receive products. So we can receive product to a specific location or issue it from a location. So let me just clear this out. And what I'm going to do is actually show our connect tool as well to show you how easy it is to actually sync data to the device as well as from the device. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our TracerPlus Connect software, which is available for free trial. I'm going to create a new project. And then what we're going to do is create a profile. So with Connect, it enables you to do syncing, or you can actually operate in real-time live mode. In this case, I'm going to do a sync profile. And we recommend linking this Connect profile to your TracerPlus desktop project, as it's going to make the data mapping process a lot smoother. So if we just look at our project name, it's called Inventory Manage V6. I'm going to choose that here. And then I'll create the profile. So maybe our first profile is going to be our Sync to device. And I'll create a sync process called Sync Inventory. And then we just need to set a source and destination for this sync process. So it's going to be coming from ODBC in this case, because we actually include, with some of these sample projects you find, we actually include a sample database with the Connect software that actually has some data you can use and test this project with. So I'm going to select ODBC, then our Connect sample, and we can choose our product list table. The destination is where it's going to, so in this case it's our mobile device, so we're going to select TracerPlus. And then we choose which product or which session we're actually going to sync this data to. So in this case, we want to sync it to our View Product List session. Then we just need to match up the mappings here below to make sure that our field mappings are correct. So this is just saying the location field in the database will sync to the location field in TracerPlus and so on. We can choose how it posts to the device. In this case, we're just going to overwrite. And then I can actually save this. I think I actually have an existing project for this, so I'll just overwrite that one. And then if we take a look at the data viewer, here is our sample data that I'm going to end up syncing to the device. You'll see that we have some part numbers, where they're located, descriptions, and their quantities. So now what I want to do is get the sync to work on the device. So there's a few ways you could go about this. The first could be, just hitting the sync button here from the Connect software. The only issue we see with that is that solely relies on Microsoft's Windows Mobile Device Center, which can be flaky at times. So we always recommend, even for Cradle syncs, adding a sync button to your forms or even a dedicated sync session. So I'm going to go ahead and add a sync session in this case. And want to remove all the fields. We do have to leave one field here. I'm just going to start with a blank canvas. Let me just size this back to my Windows screen size. And I'm going to add a button by clicking button and placing it on the form. We'll call it Sync to Device. And we can resize this. Maybe we will change the color of it to a dark blue with a white text. And we can also make the text a little bigger, as well as let's make it bold. And we can also center it to the form. The button action we want here is for a sync. So we call that button Do Sync. And then there's two things that we need to fill out for this sync to work properly: the host ID and the profile ID. So the host ID is going to be the PC or the server that you're going to be syncing to. So the way we get that ID is to come over to the project properties, go to Connect, and add our host. Since I'm going to do a Cradle sync here, I'm going to call it PPP_peer. So you'll notice here it has a host ID of 1. Then we're going to come back to our sync session and set that host ID to 1. The next thing it needs is the profile ID. So this is going to be the profile and connect that you want to sync with this button. So if we jump over to connect and the configure, we'll see that our profile sync to device has a profile ID of 1. Then we're going to set that to 1 as well. So now I can actually deploy this change to my device. So there's our newly added sync session. And if we go into it, there's our sync button. And now what I want to do is just sync this inventory list over to the device. So if I hit sync, we should see some activity. You'll see it's syncing 8 of 8 records, successful. And when we actually look in the product list on the device, we should now have this same item info. Oh, wrong one. Let me go to the actual view data and then view product list. There's our 8 records with locations, part numbers, description, and quantity. So now if we go into receive something, I can scan a key in, or you could obviously barcode scan that, looks up the description, received to stockroom 1, it shows what's in stockroom already, and if we were to receive, 15, that should give us 25. We'll save that. Come back and check our product list. We now have 25. We can also do the same for the issue. Scan the same product number. Issued from stockroom 1, you'll see quantity and 25. So let's issue 10. This should leave us with 15. Come back and check our product list. We now have 15. So this is a good app to demonstrate some of the lookup and calculated functionality where we can look up data based on things that are scanned, as well as update list info with new quantities. So now what I want to get into is the nitty-gritty barcode features that you're all here for. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. So if we're looking for barcode-specific features, the first place we want to check is the data capture. I'm going to go ahead and just switch this to Windows Mobile. So if the barcode scanner is natively supported by TracerPlus, we can utilize all of these features. So all Zebra Windows devices are natively supported by us, as well as the some CipherLab Windows scanners. On the Android front, we do support all CipherLab Android devices, as well as Zebra devices through a TracerPlus data wedge profile. All of the devices we can still work with barcode scanning. You just won't be able to utilize some of these features as they use what we call a third-party wedge app that actually gets the data from the scanner to the app basically as keyboard data. So devices other than Zebra or CipherLab, you can still use barcode scanning. You just may not be able to use some of the features I'm going to show now. So the first thing we have here is the enabling and disabling of barcode scanner. So obviously, if you disable it, you won't be able to use the scanner on the device. Now this can actually be useful if you're using a mobile RFID device and you just want to be able to scan RFID and not have the barcode scanner also turn on at the same time. So you can turn that off here, or you can even turn that off at the field level, which I will also show. So we're going to leave that enabled. So one of the main features here is the smart form. So we have a rule called barcode scan complete. So what this means is that any barcode scanned, we can actually direct to a specific field. So regardless of where your focus is on the form, if you're in a different field or if you're not in a field at all, if you scan a barcode, it'll be placed in the field of your choice here. So in this case, let's say field 3. And then you can also choose whether or not that this smart form rule triggers the after scan events. So that will show, we'll talk about the after scan events in a minute, but you can actually enable disable whether this triggers an after scan or not. Most cases you will, but there are some cases where we recommend turning that off. So we're going to say field 3 is going to receive anything that's barcode scanned. So I'll just go ahead and create a default form here. Let me just size it back to my Windows device. And we'll just rebuild that and deploy. You'll see that since this is a new project, I deployed it. It's going to overwrite whatever project was already on the device. So now we just see session 1. So right now, cursor is focused in field 1. So now I'm going to scan a barcode. So device is in the cradle, so bear with me if it takes a little while to get it lined up correctly. So you'll see that I scanned the barcode, and that even though I was focused on field 1, it went to field 3 because of that smart form rule. So I'm in field 4 now. If I scan something different, you'll see that it's still going to go to field 3. So anytime I try to scan a barcode, regardless of what it is or where you're focused, we're always going to get it to go to field 3. You also see that after I scan, the cursor is being focused to field 4. That is being done by the after scan settings. So if we just take a look at those now. So these are some functions you can do on an after scan event. So that could be a barcode scan or a drop-down selection, or if you manually keyboard enter data and then press an enter key, those are all considered after scan events. So there are a few options you could do here. You can auto submit. So if it happens to be the last field on your form, once you scan data into that field, it can actually submit the record automatically versus having to press a submit button. You'll see that that kind of speeds data collection, not requiring touch intervention with the screen. So that's useful in that case. Clear on submit is whether or not you want to retain the data on a submit. So if you're doing an app where you want to eliminate repetitive data entry, such as, let's say you were selecting a location and then scanning a bunch of barcodes. If you turned off clear on submit for the location field, that would retain for every scan. So let me just set that up quick. So let's say we did a location and a barcode. And we could say, turn off clear on submit for location. Barcode will do an auto submit. We do want that one to clear. And one of the popular features of after scan is telling the cursor where to go after the scan. So in this case, since we're retaining location, I want to keep going back to the barcode field. So we'll just basically be scan, submit, scan, submit, scan, submit. And we'll just make this a drop down. Say A, B, C, D. We'll change our smart form rule to field barcode. And we will trigger the after scan in this case. So we'll push this out. So one thing I should have done was just rebuild our form here because we'll have some blank fields there. All right, so if I go in session 1, so here's our location. We'll select A. That automatically jumps to the barcode field. So in this case, we really didn't need a smart form rule, but I left it. So now you'll see, you may not even see the scan because it happened so quickly, but you'll see the record count going up. You may hear the submit sound. So as I'm scanning things, it's automatically submitting that data. And we're seeing that we're keeping the location so that we don't have to keep entering that over and over. So if we actually look at the data, so there's, we had that old record there from before, but I did 11 records, and you'll see that they all have that location and the barcodes that were scanned for them. So that's the powerful after scan features. There's also an auto find on scan. So this is useful if you're doing sort of inventory counting. Let's say I added a quantity to this, and I made the barcode field auto find on scan. We can actually increment the quantity with each scan by doing this, and it'll update that same record. The only thing we would need to do for quantity is set a variable of increment. And we still do the go to field to itself with the auto submit. Let's go ahead and deploy this. And I just want to clear up my data. Actually, another thing we want to do is just rebuild that form so that our quantity field shows up. Keep in mind, if you've already designed your form to look nice, you can add additional fields by just clicking the field control over here and then setting it in the properties in the right. So you don't have to rebuild the form every time like I'm doing. All right, so we could select the location here, and then I'll go ahead and scan. So in this case, you'll see that we left the prompt option. So with auto find on scan, it's just basically looking in the local session to see if that record exists. If not, you can do a few things. You can prompt just like we're seeing now. You could just no prompt and add, or you can no prompt and discard. We'll just say yes to this. Now we have one record. So you'll see as we're scanning this, our quantity is going up, but we're still maintaining a single record. If I scan something different, we just hit yes. And if I don't know if I can hit this again, but I'll try. No, I missed it. And then if we scan that one, that will increment. Or we can go back to the original. And let's just take a look at the data. So there's the 3 items that I ended up scanning and how many times I actually scanned them. So this is a good use for inventory counting. So that would be enabling that auto find on scan in the after scan settings, as well as using that increment variable. Next thing we want to touch on is validation. So we actually had a partner of ours actually use barcoding in neonatal intensive care unit for tracking mothers' milk to their babies, and to prevent nurses from scanning the same barcode twice, i.e. scanning the bottle twice when they should be scanning the bottle and then scanning, the wristband. They got around this or they actually prevented that by enabling different barcode type validation. So if I create a different session here, so we could say barcode 1, barcode 2. So we could say, for one, they had to match. So we could do a barcode type validation. We could say, you know, barcode 1 has to be code 39. And then we could say barcode 2 has to be a code 128 font. So that means for instance, the bottle would be printed with a code 39 font, barcode font, and the bottle or the wristband would be encoded with the code 128 font, so that they couldn't scan the bottle twice or the wristband twice and have it successfully submit. So it required them to scan that specific barcode and to make sure that they were actually doing their job correctly. On top of that, they actually did an equals validation. So they're saying that barcode 2 must match barcode 1 to make sure that the right mother's milk was getting to the right baby. We can also do custom validation messages if you wanted to. We could say, you know, invalid barcode. We could say, this one I'll leave blank because we actually have two different validations here. So we'd want to know which one it failed on, whether the barcode type or the matching. So I'll go ahead and remove the rest of these fields, build our form. And deploy. All right, so I'm going to be scanning from a sheet here. Which I seem to have misplaced. Let me open that up for you. So here I have a sheet of the different barcode types that I typically test with to make sure that the validation is working correctly. What I'm going to do now is try to connect my mobile tool here via IP so that you can still see my device while it's not in the cradle. Just bear with me here. We'll right click that, we'll do a connect IP, and then we'll just find our IP address. All right, so that should be the correct one. All right, so we should be connected remotely to my device now. I'm going to go ahead and launch TracerPlus again. And I'm just going to slide this sheet over to my other screen here a little bit, just so you can see it take place. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scan code 128 twice. And then if we try to submit, you'll even hear our custom validation sound there. It'll say invalid barcode, and it jump backs to 1. So you know that the invalid barcode was in field 1. So if we scan a code 39 to that, and then scan a code 39 again, and try to submit, we'll get an error again saying that invalid barcode type in barcode 2. So that's the one that should be code 128. Now if I scan the code 128 and hit submit, you'll see that that actually was allowed to pass through because I scanned the code 39 to barcode 1 and the code 128 to barcode 2, and then the data itself actually matched. So that is a good use for barcode functionality, barcode validation. You can also, you know, if you don't know the barcode font and you just want to force it to be a barcode, you could just do an all codes. That would force it to actually be a barcode scan. All right, So one of the last things I want to show you is our input type variable. So you can actually tell how users actually enter data. If I create a third session, say data and type will set as a variable input type of the data field. And the idea of this is just to see how your users are entering the data. If you find that someone's keying in data more than they're scanning, you may want to, that's a good pointer to say, hey, maybe I should look into this, or maybe there's something wrong with the barcode label and you just need to print a new barcode label because they're unable to read it. Let's go ahead and deploy this. That's right. I will need to reconnect my device. So actually, I'll do this one on the Android. So I can just switch this to Android, deploy. If we go to session 3, now if I were to type something in here and hit the enter key, you'll see that it was entered via keyboard. If I come back up here and scan it, not only is it going to tell you a barcode was scanned, but the actual barcode font that was scanned. So you'll see that I just scanned a code 128 barcode into that data field. So that's another good use for barcoding in TracerPlus. And one other thing I wanted to show, at a field level, you can actually set the type of input. So if we select the data field and then come over to input type, you'll see that we have a few options here. Any means it'll allow barcode, keyboard, or RFID. If I select keyboard, it's not going to allow barcode or RFID. If I select barcode, it only allows barcode. If I select RFID, it only allows RFID. So if you're using an app that utilizes both RFID and barcode, you don't necessarily have to disable the barcode scanner here. You could use the field level controls for the fields so that you may want to barcode scan one field, like a location, and then maybe you want to scan all the RFID tags in a room. So the location you could set as input type barcode, and then the asset you could set as input type RFID. And then a feature that's actually pretty cool to sort of piggyback on this is the input type button action. So if we add a button and select a action of, I believe it is toggle input. So this button you can actually use to toggle input to this specific field. So I could set the toggle input control ID. So if we just click on this ID button, it shows what all our unique control IDs are. So our data field is 5. We go back to the control. So we'll say we want to toggle the input of 5. So the first thing you do is set a default of what the default toggle will be for that field. So maybe it starts off as barcode. Then you can also enable what the toggle actually does. So if you want to be able to flip between, any barcode, keyboard, RFID, or maybe you just want to be able to toggle between barcode and keyboard, you can actually set any and RFID to false so that the toggle, so that means anytime you click the button, it does the toggle. So every time you click it, it'll flip between barcode or keyboard. So then you can actually change the caption of what the button will show once you actually toggle these. You'll see barcode and keyboard. So now if I deploy this, let me deploy that to my Android. No, I did do that. Go to session 3. Because it's an Android device and I had the barcode, it's going to try to do barcode. Let me just back out from this. Let me actually set our start on field to type. So you'll see here we have, right now it says barcode, so that means that field is accepting barcode. If I click on it, it switches to keyboard. Now I can type in it. If I switch it back to barcode, it's going to bring up our, in this case, it's just doing the camera. I could actually scan something here. And because it's set to go to itself, that's why it's popping up again. But that's a good feature to use if you want to toggle input between, or for a single field, I should say, if you want to be able to toggle different types of input for a specific field. So that's useful. We've seen in like asset tracking, if they're doing RFID, maybe it's not tagged yet, so then they can switch to a barcode, or if the barcode is not readable, then they can switch to keyboard. So you basically get your preferred method of data entry, but give the user the ability to change that to be able to enter the data. So that's all I wanted to show today in terms of barcoding and some of the barcode features that are available to you within TracerPlus. I hope that you've got everything you need out of it and you're able to now create your own barcode-enabled applications. So if you do have any questions after the webinar, feel free to reach out to us at the contact info on the screen now. You can also check out our YouTube channel, which has lots of training videos that would be useful to you getting started, or you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You'll see posts and when we put up new videos and such. Everything I showed today is available for free trial by going to TracerPlus.com and clicking on the Take a Trial. Here's the desktop software as well as the Connect software for the syncing. The mobile client you can install from desktop for Windows, or you can actually get from the Play Store if you're using Android. And for any support info, or if you have questions, just check out our support page. This is where you can find our downloads, our training resources, knowledge base, forums, user guides, registration, or if you need to submit a ticket to our support team. And even know if your hardware is compatible. We are compatible with most devices, even though they're not listed in our compatibility list. We try to add them as we test them, but not everything will be there. So if you do have the device, just go ahead and give it a shot. And it does typically work. And if you're looking for any pricing info, you can get that on our pricing page. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.